My name is Akinmejiwa Oluyemi Walter. On the assignment given to us, duty of care. What is duty of care? In tort law, a duty of care is a legal obligation which is imposed on an individual requiring adherence to a standard or reasonable care while performing any act that could foreseeably harm others. It is the first element that must be established to proceed with an action in negligence. The claimant must be able to show a duty of care by law which the defendant has breached. In turn, breaching a duty may subject an individual to liability. The duty of care may be imposed by operation of law between individuals with no current direct relationship, familiar or contractual or otherwise, but eventually become related in some manner as defined by common law. Duty of care may be considered a formalized of the social contract, the implication of responsibility held by individuals toward the others in the society. It is not a requirement that a duty of care be defined by law, though it will often develop through the jurisprudence of common law. Let's look at this statement, policy statement. Teaching staff owe a duty to take care for the safety and welfare of students whilst students are involved in school activities or are present for the purpose of a school activity. The duty is to take such measures as are reasonable in all circumstances to protect students from risk of harm that reasonably ought to be foreseen. This requires not only protection from known hazard, but also protection from harm that could foreseeably arise and against which preventative measure could be taken. In discharging their duty of care responsibility, teaching staff must exercise their professional judgment to achieve a balance between ensuring that a student do not face an unreasonable risk of harm and encouraging student independence and maximizing learning opportunities. While non-teaching staff, volunteers, and external providers agree to perform tasks that require them personal to care for students in the absence of a member of teaching, that is, in the absence of a teaching staff member, they will also owe a duty to take such measures as are reasonable in all circumstances to protect students from risk of harm or to be foreseen. Defining duty of law, duty of care. A duty of care is a duty imposed by law to take care to minimize the risk of harm to another. It's a legal concept that its origin is in the common law. The common law is a collective of legal principles that have been established over time by the courts. Let's look at the teachers' duty of care to pupils. Teachers are required to do all that is reasonable to protect the health, the safety, and the welfare of pupils. Their legal responsibility derives from the three sources, and this section consider each of these three. I'll be considering the three. Number one, the common law duty of care, the statutory duty of care, and the duty arising from contract of employment. The common law duty of care. Teachers have duty to take care of pupils, which derives from common law. The common law is developed through decision of court as opposed to the law, which has been determined by the parliament and set down in statute. Traditionally, in terms in loco parentis was used to describe the duty of care that the teacher has towards the pupil. To the effect that a teacher has a duty to take the same reasonable care of the pupil that a parent would take in those circumstances. In loco parentis, originally embodied in 19th century the common law principle that a teacher authority was delegated by a parent so far as it is necessary for the welfare of the child. A court was held in 1893 that the schoolmaster is bound to take such care of the pupils as careful father would. During 1950s and 1960s also, case law was developed further by the court. In 1955, it was held that a balance must struck between the meticulous supervision of children every moment of the day and the desirable object of encouraging study independence as they grow up. Teacher professionalism was recognized by the court in 1962, where the standard of care expected of a teacher was held to be that of a person exhibiting the responsible mental qualities of a prudent parent in the expected of a teacher that is reasonable person in the circumstances of a class teacher. It has been recognized that a teacher's duty of care to individual people is influenced by one, the subject of or activity being taught, the age of the children, the available resources and the size of the class. Further, it is clear from case law that the standard of care expected is application of the ordinary skill of a competent professional, the skill and the care of a reasonable teacher. If it can be shown that a professional acted enough with the view of a reputable body of opinion within their profession, the duty of care will have been satisfied, even though others may disagree. A breach of duty of care by a teacher will amount to the law negligence. A teacher's employer could be liable for the payment of damages in compensation to a pupil who is injured as a result of negligence. Whether teachers are found negligent in the event of accident will influence whether the incidents that occur are reasonably be foreseen. If teachers take all reasonable steps to ensure the safety of the pupil, it is unlikely that the teacher will held to be negligent in the event of an unforeseen accident. Negligence could also arise if there is a serious failure to prevent harm to a child arising from, for example, pupil bullying. If negligence arises in these circumstances, it is more likely to be a collective falling rather than a duty of one individual. A teacher's duty of care will depend upon what is reasonable and what can be expected for a competent professional acting within the constraint of the circumstances. What are we talking about? Statutory duty of care. Teachers are responsible under the Children's Act, which places statutory duties upon those who care for children. When issues arising concerning safeguarding and promoting the welfare of children, teachers should take into account the ascertainable needs and wishes of the children as individuals. Consider the light of ages, understanding, and the risk. The contractual duty. The duty of care also arises from the contract of employment, the terms of which will depend on the type of school in which the teacher works. The school teacher pay and condition document expressly define the contractual duties upon all teachers employed in maintained schools. Another one is negligence. You are asked to talk about negligence. Negligence is a common law tort that is a wrong. Negligence is a failure to do something that is reasonable and prudent person would do, or the commission of an act that such a person would not commit. Let's look at it. The duty of care owed by a teacher to students. For a student to succeed in an action in negligence against a teacher or school authority, it is necessary for students to establish, one, that the defendant owned a duty of care to the students, that the standard of care was breached, and lastly, that the breach was caused the student to suffer some form of damage. The duty of care owed owed to a student by a teacher is that of a reasonable teacher. This means that the duty of care owed is duty one would expect from a hypothetical teacher with normal skills and attributes. This requires teachers to take responsible care and to avoid injuries to students which could reasonably be foreseen as possibly occurring. What is reasonable or reasonably foreseen will depend on the particular circumstances. The nature of the special duty of care owned by teacher will be discussed later on. At the time of this injury, all members, for example, let's look at this case. The plaintiff was a 15-year-old schoolboy attending a school in the act. At this time of injury, all the members of staff but one were attending an emergency staff meeting called as a result of a sudden death of the principal early that morning. Only one teacher remained on the playground duty. That was usually between 5 to 20 teachers on duty to supervise approximately 900 pupils. Taking advantage of the lack of supervision, a group of boys, including the plaintiff, began to swing on the school flag pole. Part of the pole hit the plaintiff, causing him seriously head injuries. The plaintiff sued, among others, the association, which was the relevant school authority. The Commonwealth did not, however, employ the teachers. The plaintiff was unsuccessful at the first instance, but his appeal was followed by the full court of federal court. The court found that the Commonwealth has been negligent in failing to provide proper supervision, 1. 2. Failing to ensure that the flagpole was padlocked to prevent freedom of movement, and 3. Failing to implement a rule that the flagpole could not be used without the express authority of a teacher. The court then approved the following formation of duty of care. The duty of care owned by a teacher required only that he should take such measures as in all circumstances were reasonable to prevent physical injury to pupils. This duty not being one of ensure against injury, but to take extraordinary care to prevent it. So if you are looking at it, negligence is telling us that it's a part of tort law and deals with grievances between individuals where one party has suffered as a result of something the other party did or did not do. The purpose of negligence is to receive compensation for the injury sustained. Educational negligence or educational malpractice is an emerging area of litigation. To distinguish the area of litigation from negligence where a physical injury is suffered by a student, educational malpractice refers to a claim by a student that a school teacher has failed to facilitate learning. The American courts have regarded educational malpractice as a basis for a claim of that. So negligence is a legal cause of action may follow breaches of Education Act, negligence, breach of contract. Negligence in terms of physical injury suffered by students is only one aspect of litigation. If you are talking about negligence, so I'm ready to stop here for